This week on Barely Homesteading, we're going to be working on our orchard. So as we mentioned on an earlier video, we've got an area that we've started to work on for an orchard, and we need to get it fenced off to keep the deer out. Over the winter we had a temporary fence put up, but that is not going to last when we've got, you know, elk and moose and things that are trying to get in, so we need to get in our permanent fencing. And we've started that on one side, and we're going to continue to work that around the orchard area. Because this has some elevation change, last year we put in this rock wall, and on this other side of the rock wall we're going to be putting in some berry patch at some future point. And so I want to get in and level that out first with the skid steer before we put the post in, so that I don't have to worry about backing into a post. So I'm going to do that first, then we're going to start working on the posts. All right, now that we've got kind of a rough leveling there, it's not done by any means, but at least I've got it pulled away from that retaining wall where we're going to be putting the fence posts. So now we can mark off where the fence posts are going to go. Since this is mostly backfill, these fence post holes on top of the retaining wall should actually go in pretty quick. So now we've got all the posts in. Took us about 2 weeks longer than it should have, but we had some big rocks to pull out and a couple of holes. So now we're going to do the top bracing, and then we can install fencing. But it's already getting late tonight, so we're going to do that another day. Today we're going to start the bracing on the top of our fence posts, and don't know how far we're going to get, but we're going to get as much done as we can. It's pretty hot today, so we may be knocking off a little early just because of the heat. All right, so we started at the lowest point, the lowest post, and we worked our way around to the highest post, and now we're going to do the same thing in the other direction. We always want to work lowest to highest so that we can overlap boards and try to even them out as much as possible. Now, this fence is pretty much the exact same design as we've used on the other garden area. If you're interested in learning more about the details of this and why we're doing certain things with the bracing, please check out our previous video on the garden fencing. All right, so I've run out of 10-foot boards, and I've got a couple of places where I'm going to need those. So I'm going to switch and start working on the under support, the L, up the top brace with the rest of the 8-foot boards that I have, pick up some 10-foot boards, and we'll finish off the tops another day. All right, now that we've got the top pieces all done on the fencing, we're going to move on, and actually we're going to do things out of order from what we've done in the past. We're going to do the gates next. And the reason we're going to do the gates is because we've got some boards. We know we have enough for the gates, but if we started doing the corner pieces, the angle pieces in the corners, we might end up using some of the wood that we had set aside for the gates. So we're going to do the gates first and the corner pieces for the gates, make sure that we get all of that wood utilized. Then we'll come back and we'll start doing the rest of the corner pieces for the supports and attach the fencing. So let's build some gates. All right, so with the gates up, we've taken the remaining pressure treated wood lumber that we have, cut it into angle pieces, and we're going to start putting those up. We're going to start with the 4 corners first so that those are strengthened and we can start running fencing. And then with whatever's left over, we're going to be putting them up in the harder places to reach so that we can get some fencing up. And then those sections that don't have the angle pieces, we can always come in later and add them if they're easy to get to. So we want to do the ones that are harder to get to first before we put the fencing up and make it even more difficult. We've got enough of the angle supports up that we can start installing the actual welded wire fencing. I've come in and I've mowed the weeds down to make it easier to get the welded wire fencing on so that the weeds aren't in the way with the posts. Now, we're only going to put the lower half of the fencing on right now, and we'll pick up some more pressure treated lumber so we can cut the rest of the angle supports and get those installed before we put the upper half of the fencing up. Now that we've got the orchard fence in, this will keep the larger critters out, the deer and the moose and all that, from eating the trees. Right now we have 2 apple trees and a cherry tree planted in the orchard. We're going to be expanding that later this year, probably getting another cherry tree and hopefully some peach trees, if we can find some that will work in this cooler climate. And we will talk to you about those later and how we protect the root balls of those trees from the burrowing critters. So until then, this is Lumberjack from Barely Homesteading saying use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye.